And welcome into the webinar room. Please get comfortable. We're going to wait for just a few minutes while we wait for everybody else who's going to be joining us this morning. And while we wait, I would love for you to chime in that chat over this side, over on the right side of your webinar screen, just to say hello to us and to everybody else out there on the webinar. Let us know your name and where you are logging in from. We are in the beautiful Pacific Northwest in Washington, but we never fail to get people logging in from all around the world, which is one of the reasons that makes the internet so special. All right, let's say some hellos to people. Let's see here. Oh, Bend, Oregon. Awesome. I just saw that. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Faranack from Leesburg and Virginia. Grant from San Diego. Hi, Grant. Hello. And Leslie from WDC. And then Victoria says, hi, Michelle. And then Damini, I think I said that right. Pardon me if I did not. Minnie from Boston. Thank you for that. Excellent. And then Jared from Utah, Shelly from Vancouver, Monique from Los Angeles, Nancy from Mercer Island, just to jump over that way. And Lacey from Germany. We got our official first person over the pond. Welcome, Lacey. And then hello, Pam from Arizona. Kristen says, hi, everyone. I'm Kristen from Pasadena, California. Welcome. And then Amber says hello from Colorado. Here we go. Eveline, I had you on my open house on Tuesday from the Netherlands. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Dawn from Toronto, Barbara from Bend, Sonia from Kansas City, Missouri. I grew up in Kansas. Ursula from Louisiana. Oh my gosh, this just like unending line of people saying hello. Thank you so much for doing that. I do want to, before we get started, I want to have a little bit of housekeeping, which is if you happen to experience any audio or video issues during the webinar, all good. Just make sure that you exit out of any of those extra browser tabs that you have open, and that will allow the whole of the live stream to be able to, focus on the webinar here. You can also refresh your browser and rejoin with your link if that ever happens. And the webinar is being recorded today, and everyone will get a link to the recording tomorrow in a follow-up email, so you are all good. See a few more hellos and we can get started. Loretta from Los Angeles, Max from Arizona, Violetta from San Diego, Caroline, Dublin, Ireland, nice, again over the pond, and Maria from San Jose. And then we have another over the Caesar. Hi, Renee from Switzerland. And then hello, Malav from Sydney. Awesome, very good. And greetings from Estonia, Denise says. Sending some serious celebration vibes for Viome's incredible 8-year journey. Thank you so much for that. That is wonderful. That makes Momo smile. And I think that we can get started on that note. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our special celebratory event, Mission Possible 1 Million Microbiomes. This is Viome's 8th birthday, and we have so much to celebrate, not only with our amazing science and technology, but that we are able to bring it directly to you, the Viome user, down in the consumer level. That's the real benefit, the real story here, that we love to help people live healthier, eat healthier, and feel healthier. So I have, obviously, with me a special individual with me today. You probably know who he is, Dr. Momo Vuyisich, who is our founding Chief Science Officer and also Head of Clinical Research for Viome. He's been with Viome far more than 8 years that we've been operating, and he has a story to tell us. I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
Hello, Lisa.
Yes. And then with that, I think we can just get you started.
Let's get going. There's an echo here.
Oh, that's okay. I can't hear it.
Okay.
It may even out for you after a moment, but I can't hear it myself.
All right, let's get started. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I saw some people from Colombia as well, and India, and so on. This is amazing what today's technology can allow us to do and share the knowledge and so on. So yeah, today I want to talk to you about what we've done for the last 8 years and also the pre-Viome story, because lots of people ask about how did Viome come about, and then we'll talk about some cool science and give you some cool scientific concepts and nutrition concepts, and then we'll do some questions and answers. So let's dive right in. So a little bit about me. So I have a an undergraduate degree in microbiology and a PhD in biochemistry. I consider myself to be a systems biologist. So I'd like to look at the human body as an entity that includes our cells and all of our microbes and our environment. And our environment is very complex, and we'll talk about that a little more. I have published more than 40 peer-reviewed papers. And the idea for Viome came in about 2010, but it took me 6 years to actually develop the technology to enable the company to exist. I was a government scientist and had a very nice job and didn't want to just jump ship and start a company until everything was really firm in terms of technology, because there was no technology that could do what we were doing today at that time. So it took 6 years of technology development to get there. And then finally in 2016, my teams patented all that technology at Los Alamos, and then we spun out the company with Naveen and Guru, and you guys probably know, and if you don't, you should familiarize yourself with Naveen and Guru. These guys are absolutely brilliant business people and AI leaders, and so that's sort of quick and easy there. And so lots and lots of people, most people want to know, how did Viome Life Sciences come about? And so here are some big reasons for why this company was created. So first reason was that I was not diagnosed, but I had some kind of an autoimmune condition in my early age, and it took more than a decade to figure out what it was. But once I figured it out, it was basically a diet change. And I'm now 51, and I should have been in a wheelchair by now if I had gone to the healthcare system. If the healthcare system had been taking care of me, I would be in a wheelchair by now. But luckily, I was able to find out what was wrong with me, change my diet, and I've been healthy. I'm actually today healthier than I've been in many, many years. So that's very exciting, and that's one of the driving forces behind the idea of Viome. The next is, I was an academic researcher, and I realized what academia and pharma are about, and they're not about bringing health to you and me. They're not. If you think that, I'm sorry that you think that. I also developed a very deep understanding of the human physiology and factors, all of the factors that affect our health. Because at the time, like in 2010, when I thought of this idea, everyone thought that the root cause of everything was genetics. And once we find out your genome, we'll be able to fix you. Well, that's now failed. Genetics has failed. Genetics provides very little input into our health and disease. And so we'll talk about that, of course. And then really, I wanted to use my knowledge and my passion to bring science to nutrition and to empower individuals who are not scientists and who don't spend all their days thinking about science and reading about science and doing experiments in science, to actually empower them to choose the best nutrition for them based on data that come from their body and not from some epidemiological studies that don't apply to them. So we'll talk about that as well. So just a quick note about what was my autoimmune condition. I had this widespread pain all over my body and inflammation for many, many years. And so I was on NSAIDs for many years, 24 hours a day. My joints were starting to fail, and I was very young at that time, so very devastating disease. And I figured out it was this molecule here called New5GC that is found in mammalian foods that was triggering my immune system to basically mount this chronic systemic inflammation. So I cannot have any kind of red meat and I cannot have any kind of dairy, but that's okay. When I don't consume those, I'm healthy and I can do everything in my life. So I'm very happy to have found this. The healthcare on the other side would have wanted me to be on biologics, and they wanted me obviously to pay into the system $120,000 to $150,000 a year and support this huge trend that we've had, where today we as a nation in the US spend $4.1 trillion per year on health, well, on managing disease is what it is. It's sick care, not health care. And 90% of that is spent on managing chronic diseases. And this is really a shocking statistic that 60% of US adults have at least one chronic disease. A generation ago, this would have been an absolute crazy thing to say, but today it just is normal. If you're 50 and you're sick, that's normal. Whereas 30 years ago, that was not normal. So I'm just showing here that our healthcare costs have increased, our chronic disease burden has increased, and academia and pharma are not really focused on doing anything about it, which is really a shame. And so here's a slide about academia. So you guys know that academics publish papers. And so I just searched yesterday for multiple sclerosis. This disease particularly bothers me because a neighbor died from multiple sclerosis just last year, and I had been watching that progression. And so if you look at multiple sclerosis, but this is just one example of every disease, chronic disease, what you can see is that academia have published almost 63,000 papers. One paper takes an incredible amount of time and money to publish, but this is 63,000 papers over the last few decades. And guess what? We don't know how to prevent MS. We don't know what causes it. We don't know how to predict relapses and how to prevent them and minimize them. We don't know how to prevent someone from going into a secondary MS, and we don't know how to prevent people from dying. So we basically don't really know anything. We can just manage this disease at a very high cost and a very high pain burden for the person and their family after 63,000 papers. And the reason for that is none of these scientists were incentivized to solve the problem. Their only incentive is to publish a paper. That paper can be in a mouse model that's completely not relevant to humans. It can be something that they mention multiple sclerosis, but it's not really relevant. And this is really where I was. And I realized, well, I'm going to spend 40 years in academia solving nothing and just publishing papers and then retiring. And I didn't want that for myself.
Great.
So pharma, I don't have a slide for pharma, but pharma's business model is not to cure anything because then they lose profits from you, right? So pharma's business model is to manage the disease and squeeze out as much profits out of every person as possible. And that's why they're making, trillions of dollars. Now, please don't misinterpret my statement as I don't think that these people are evil. It's just a business model that we as consumers and citizens need to understand, that you do not want to wait until you get sick, because there is no pharmaceutical solution for when you get sick, or there are very few solutions. So really, prevention is what we really want to do and stay healthy. So once all that technology was developed at Viome, once that realization came to my mind in 2010, then let's talk about what happened during the 6 years at Los Alamos National Laboratory. So this is the pre-Viome era. So one thing that I realized is that I grew up on the Mediterranean coast, and my ancestors lived to be, very long-living people. And at 90 years old, they were sheep herding, they were farming, and they were cognitively, mentally, and physically fit at 90. Try to go find someone today in a city in the United States that has that. That's a super rare thing. And a generation ago is the norm. And so you guys have probably heard of these blue zones, which I'm fascinated by, because in these blue zones, people tend to live one with nature. They do not take pharmaceuticals. They do not go to the doctors. They just live with nature, and they're able to do things that are today considered extraordinary, but just a generation ago, they were pretty normal. And what I want to point out is, as a concept, is that think about this for a second. Your body is basically a 3D print of the foods you consume. When you're born, you're basically a 3D print of what your mom ate during pregnancy. She made you from the foods that she consumed. And then throughout your life, every part of your body comes from foods you've consumed. And so that 3D print is going to be healthy if we consume the right foods, and it may have issues and problems if you don't consume the right foods. And so that's really, this concept made me realize that nature has already figured out how to keep people healthy for a very long time. All we have to do is bring science and technology to that and understand what is healthy, what is not healthy, and how do we revert unhealthy back to healthy if needed, or just maintain health for the rest of our lives. That's really what the concept was. So in other words, if you're pitching to someone a pharmaceutical, you're going to have to include the possibility that the pharmaceutical will not work. You will have to include the possibility that the pharmaceutical will have horrible side effects. Whereas with nature, we already know there are tens of thousands of people who are in their hundreds and they live healthy lifestyles. Nature has already solved this problem. There are no side effects. There are no toxicities. There's nothing to worry about. It's all natural. And so let's figure that out and bring it to everyone. That's basically the concept. Okay, so this is one of the most important topics for this entire webinar. I want to make sure that people understand that we at Viome are not saying that gut microbiome is the only thing that you need to worry about your health. And if someone else comes to you and says, gut microbiome is the most important thing in health, or they say the immune system is the most important thing in health, or they say hormones are the most important thing, or they say genetics is the most important thing. Nobody is right. The point here is that our health and disease are influenced by many different factors, and that if we have any kind of symptoms, we need to address many of those factors. We need to look into many of those factors. But in order to stay healthy, we really need to look at all of these factors and follow all these factors every day. And so let's go over some of these. Really, to me, this is the core of a healthy diet and lifestyle. So let's talk about it. So genetics, I'm not going to show you the publications, but the cat's out of the bag. Genetics plays a very small role in chronic diseases and cancers. Chronic diseases and cancers are they're lifestyle diseases and environmental diseases. They're not genetic diseases to a large degree. Nutrients, I argue, are the single most important factor overall, on average, in a population. But that doesn't mean that it applies to everyone. But I think nutrition is the biggest factor that influences our health and disease overall. However, if you have some kind of a very specific problem where the microbiome is not producing neurotransmitters and you have a mental health issue, well, that's what you need to focus on. Now, of course, nutrients are going to help with that, but it's the neurotransmitters and potentially hormones that are causing that. Microbiome, including gut microbiome, oral microbiome, vaginal microbiome, they all play very important roles in our body. In fact, the biochemistry of the microbiome is far more complex and important than our own biochemistry. So we have to look at the microbiome and pay attention to it and understand how to preserve it, how to keep it healthy, and how to feed it the right foods. And that's what Viome has focused on, is microbiome, immune system, and nutrition, for the purpose of creating a healthy environment where neurotransmitters are produced and so on. But there's more to our health. This is what I call the 4 pillars of health: is nutrition, sleep, stress or Zen, and exercise. And so let's talk about these, because I will not spend more time on these because each one of these is like a topic of its own. But for sleep, I'm going to make it very short and sweet. Get your 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep every night and you're fine. That's it. It's that simple. Yes, there are some people who claim they can get away with 4.5. Don't worry about those people. Just get yourself 7.5 to 8 and you'll be fine. Stress. So often people are looking for a root cause that's got to do something with physical world. But so often it's the root cause of someone's illness is stress in their environment, whether it's at work or home, stress about some kind of anxiety about some life situation. So pay attention to that. And I practice Zen, and Zen includes meditation, gratefulness, and just creating an environment both at work and home, strategically creating that environment. I mean, you can't just magically snap your fingers and say, okay, I'm going to create a stress-free environment. No, it sometimes takes years of intentional actions to create a stress-free environment. And so start today and start creating a Zen-like environment at home, at work, with your friends. Any negativity should be either managed or eliminated completely so that you can have a Zen in your life. And finally, last but not least, exercise. I mean, you guys hear here and there that exercise is important. Well, exercise is super important. We have evolved to move. Humans did not evolve with chairs and beds and offices and houses. We have evolved to roam nature all day long. Our bodies need to move. And so when I say move, you can go for a walk, you can go for a jog, you can go to the gym, you can play ping pong, you can play whatever you'd like, but all of that is movement. And so go out and move every single day. It has been shown as an example that 3 times weekly, light exercise for 30 minutes. Oh, I got disconnected for a minute.
You're good. You're back.
Okay. It has been shown in a randomized controlled trial that 3 days of exercise per week can be as effective for treating depression as the strongest pharmaceuticals. Why would you ignore that? Don't ignore that. Just simply go out and exercise. And again, that's a huge topic in terms of types of exercise and all that, but just go out and exercise. Make it a goal every day. Move, just move. Then on the right side, things get very complicated, but let's try to make it simple. In terms of our chemical exposure that we did not necessarily evolve with, which means that our bodies don't know how to cope with these insults every single day. Try to avoid, to your best ability, pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins. Now, that's easy to say, but pesticides are pretty much everywhere, even in some organic food, but try to avoid them by choosing organic food whenever you're not going to peel something. Heavy metals, the biggest source of heavy metals would be fish. So, deep sea fish and predatory fish. So try to avoid those or minimize them. And mycotoxins are some of the trickiest things on the planet. I mean, that is just a crazy topic we could spend hours on. But basically, mycotoxins are produced by fungi or molds. They can be in your environment, or they may have colonized you in different parts of your body, either the respiratory system or the intestinal system. And mycotoxins can produce literally hundreds of different symptoms: mental, physical, cognitive. They're very, very dangerous. They can cause cancer as well. So try to create an environment at home that is not, that does not create a good environment for molds and fungi to grow, and try to make your microbiome so wild and so healthy that it's going to resist colonization by fungi. Let's talk about food additives. A simple thing here that you see a theme is that all of these chemicals are not found in nature, and they're not something we have evolved with. So go read your food labels, your nutritional ingredients, and if you see anything that doesn't grow on trees, just don't buy it. Basically, vote with your wallet and don't buy any foods that have any of these things. Just do not. And again, this is a very long conversation, very long topic, but my recommendation is just avoid them. My family has been avoiding them for 15 years. It's very easy to avoid them. Antibiotics, sometimes you cannot avoid them, but if you have a cough or a cold and your doctor says, well, take antibiotics, that's not necessarily a good idea, because you're going to do so much damage to your microbiome, and these guys are your friends. It may take months, years, or longer to heal from that antibiotic insult. So be very careful when you use antibiotics. And then pharmaceuticals, I mean, if you stop watching the ads where all people taking pharmaceuticals are happy and healthy, if you actually go and research the topic of pharmaceuticals, you will see how much problems they cause. Pharmaceuticals are the second or third leading cause of death in the United States. But of course, the healthcare system does not want to disclose that. But they have a huge negative effect on our bodies. So be careful when you're taking pharmaceuticals. I simply rejected them for the most part because I knew that they had side effects and that they were not solving the root cause. That's the major problem, is that they don't solve the root cause. They patch up something. And so seek that root cause as much as you can. All right, so I spent a lot of time on this slide, but it's very important. So let's try to cruise through now. So for those who have seen our webinars before, you're probably familiar. So the concept can you hear me?
Yes. Well, you're reconnecting. It's okay, Momo. Don't worry. You reconnected.
Wow, it disconnected me completely. Am I back?
All good. All good. You're back. All good.
Okay, so the concept that I created before Viome is this concept Nutrition 2.0, where from collecting samples from a human body until the results and recommendations are created, it is all 100% objective science, personalized and data-driven. Data-driven means that all decisions about your results and recommendations are made based on the data derived from your body, not some average body, not some other country, but you and only you. And so that's exactly what we've created here at Viome, Nutrition 2.0. It's just biochemistry and math. It is highly personalized because your body is different from mine and everyone else is different, and we'll go about that a little bit. And the goal of this Nutrition 2.0 is to basically prevent and cure chronic diseases and cancers and slow down aging. It is also a self-learning platform that continuously improves. So every new customer of Viome benefits from every single customer and every single research participant that has ever entered our space. And that's really a very robust and powerful approach in that when you do your lipid test or your metabolic test with your doctor, the company that provides that test has been doing tests for 40 years, and we still don't know much more about those tests and what they mean than we did 40 years ago. But Viome has integrated machine learning into every single thing that we do, so we continuously improve. So we're very proud of that. Now let's talk about this biochemistry. What is biochemistry? Think of biochemistry as simply chemicals controlling our physiology, and that there's chemical communication between the microbiome and our immune system, between our brain and gut microbiome, between microbiome and our neurotransmitters. All of that is chemical communication. And let me give you an example of chemical communication. So we're going to start here with there's a specific fiber that that a person consumes, and that fiber feeds a specific microbe that they have in the gut microbiome, and that specific microbe produces a chemical called butyrate right here at the end of this. And that butyrate is produced in the colon, but it just transfers itself into the bloodstream. And if at that time your immune system is fighting a virus, that butyrate will signal to the immune system, hey, you should remember this virus, so that if it comes and attacks you again, you can fight it off with no symptoms. And so this right part, if you guys want to get a little technical, is that our immune system has the ability to recognize pathogens, and it also has, and fight them off and kill them off, but it also has a built-in ability to create a memory that can last for decades. That's why we get vaccinated, so that we can remember that and fight off the actual pathogens. That's why vaccines work so well. However, no vaccine works 100% of the time. And one of the main reasons that vaccines don't work is that the person who's vaccinated does not create a memory to that infection or to that vaccine or infection. And the reason is because the T cells that have to convert themselves to memory T cells, they require this chemical signal called butyrate in order to perform that physiological function. If your microbiome is not producing butyrate at the time you're fighting an infection, you will not create that memory, and you'll get sick again and again and again. So this is a chemical communication in your body that starts with specific foods that feed specific gut microbiome members, that produce a specific chemical that targets specific parts of our immune system to remember that we had SARS-CoV-2 infection or SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, such that we don't get sick again. This is amazing. This is just truly amazing. Nature has been doing this for millions of years, and we just discovered this like in the last 2 years. It's crazy.
Butyrate is multifaceted, because I knew about how it helps reinforce the lining of your intestines so you don't get leaky gut syndrome. But I didn't know that it helped with immunity as well. That's amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. Okay, so now how do you get butyrate? Well, here's where I want to sort of reveal one of the deficiencies in the whole microbiome space. When you read an article that says some expert, whether they're a professor or a doctor, they say gut microbiome studies are not yet ready to be used for recommendations. What they're referring to is gut microbiome tests that are done by other companies, not Viome. And I recognize this deficiency well before Viome was formed, which is why I spent 6 years developing the technology we have today, because I knew of that deficiency. And here's the deficiency. All other gut microbiome tests perform DNA analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And what they tell you is that you have a microorganism called Faecalibacterium presnitzii. And they tell you, oh, you have a great butyrate production. That is absolutely a false statement. The fact that you have Faecalibacterium presnitzii does not mean that you have great butyrate production, because that Faecalibacterium presnitzii needs to feed on some ingredient that you have to consume in order to produce butyrate. Now, specifically with Faecalibacterium presnitzii, it gets a little more complicated, because you actually have to have some Bacteroides species in your gut microbiome that feed on specific foods and produce acetate, and then that acetate is taken up by Faecalibacterium presnitzii to produce butyrate. So it gets even more complicated. But the point is that with diet 1, that Faecalibacterium presnitzii will produce butyrate.
Mm-hmm.
But with a different diet, it may not produce butyrate. And so it's not just which microorganism you have, but are they actually producing that metabolite that's healthy for you? And so other companies can never in their data find out whether Faecalibacterium presnitzii is producing butyrate or not. All they can tell you is you have that microorganism, but I have no idea what it's doing. Only the Viome test can distinguish whether Faecalibacterium presnitzii is producing butyrate and how much, or it's not producing it. And so that's a super, super important distinction for you guys to know, that this is a very special kind of thing. And going back to the previous slide, the person's immune system, they don't understand the term Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. The immune cells cannot ask, hey, microbiome, do you have Faecalibacterium prausnitzii? Oh, you do. Okay, then I'm going to convert myself to a memory T cell. The immune system doesn't have the ability to do that. It's listening for that chemical signal called butyrate. If it's produced, it'll create a memory. If it isn't produced, it will not create a memory. It doesn't matter that you have a bunch of microorganisms that are capable of producing butyrate. So please read about that and inform yourself, because that's a real quantum leap in our ability to harness the power of gut microbiome and nutrition in order to make our health better. All right, so hopefully that was clear. So now, speaking of gut microbiome tests, so just a little touch here is that many of the companies that are performing gut microbiome tests perform 16S sequencing, which I, as a senior scientist in the Genome Center of Los Alamos National Laboratory, of course, we developed that and we used it. I even have publications with that method. But that method is so severely limited that I find it marginally useful to completely useless for making any meaningful improvements in your life. Now, if there are potentially some tests that can tell you whether you have Akkermansia or not, and that can be useful whether you're going to take a Akkermansia probiotic or so. But it's really got marginal usefulness because it's poor resolution. It only sees bacteria and only sees a fraction of bacteria. So it doesn't give you the whole picture in a high enough resolution. The metagenomic tests, which are now becoming more common with providers of gut microbiome tests, also have a severe deficiency. They're all DNA analysis, which means that they cannot tell you anything about the functions of these microbiomes, which we just discussed previously, and they cannot tell you anything about the human gene expression. And then enter the Viome Metatranscriptomic test, which tells you with the highest resolution, what are all the microorganisms that are present? That includes all bacteria, all fungi, all viruses, all phages. It tells you what are they doing biochemically? Are they actually producing the healthy chemicals for yourself, or are they producing harmful chemicals, or they're not? And in addition to the microbial world, our metatranscriptomic test sees all of the human transcripts. So we get to see the activity of human genes in stool, saliva, and especially blood. And so this is really a quantum leap in our ability to understand how our body functions. And this is what I spent 6 years developing before just saying, okay, well, let's go, microbiome is a hot field right now, let's go create a company. It doesn't work like that. If you want to solve a problem, you have to figure out what are the essential pieces of solving that problem, and then bring those pieces to a company. You can't just say, let's start a company and see what's out there. That doesn't work. So I spent 6 very long years developing this. So this is all pre-Viome that we developed that test. We patented all this, licensed it to Viome, and now at Viome we have it. All right, so now let's go to, now in 2016, Guru, Naveen, and I get together, we create Viome, and now things really accelerate in terms of product development, AI, recommendations, building this platform to Nutrition 2.0, and so on. So let's talk about that. All right, so one of the most important things that I want you guys all to understand is that the vast majority, and I'm talking 99.999% of all nutritional studies that have been done over the last 50 plus years, do not address your needs. What they've been asking, all of these studies have been asking one question, which is coffee good for all humans, or is it bad for all humans? Is beef good for all humans, or is it bad for all humans? And if you ask the wrong question, and this is a very wrong question, you're never going to get the right answer, because there is no answer to the question, is coffee good for all humans or not? The real answer is, it's very good for some humans, it's okay for some humans, and it's harmful for others. That is the real answer. Right. But if you don't ask that question, you will never get the right answer. And so this is really the biggest foundational difference between Nutrition 2.0 that we've developed at Viome and all previous nutritional studies, that we are personalizing everything based on your biological data. Remember, Nutrition 2.0 is biochemistry, which is your biochemistry, and mathematics. How do we convert your biochemical data into your nutritional recommendations? And let me give you an example. So this table here, it's called a glycemic index, which is basically a number associated with all these foods that would tell a nutritionist or a functional medicine doctor or anyone how high the blood sugar will be spiked after you consume each one of these foods. And this table has been around for 40 or 50 years, and it's used still today. And it was answering the question, how high will wild rice spike an average person's blood sugar? And it's 57. Well, but there's a full spectrum of blood sugar spike from wild rice and all these other things. And so let me show you how different our data are. Here is our data. These are two people shown in two graphs, and the curves show the blood sugar response to two identical foods, banana and sprouted grain bread. And you can see person one spiked their blood sugar super high after they consumed a banana, whereas person two, they didn't feel anything. Their blood sugar remained flat. You can see person one had a very flat response to sprouted grain bread, whereas that same bread spiked the person two's sugar. Right. And so you can see here that even though on average, you can find out what the glycemic response is for a banana and wheat, you can never know how you will respond to different foods. And so this particular graph and what comes around this graph, I can spend easily an hour, but I encourage you guys to look at this reference. So we published this work, and then we published follow-up work, which I didn't add the reference, but it's our American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine publication that we published last fall, showing that if you learn how each individual responds to different foods, and you feed them foods that provide with smaller sugar spikes, that you can actually reduce their risk of type 2 diabetes. So we published that last fall. So this whole thing works, and I'll show you more data. And so how does Nutrition 2.0 work? For those people who are not current Viome customers, I'll just go briefly here. Nutrition 2.0 has been used now by customers in more than 100 countries. You basically order a kit from your web browser, and this is what you would receive. This is our premier kit, which is the full body intelligence. You get a stool collection kit, a blood collection kit, and a saliva collection kit. You ship those samples to us, and then in the lab, we measure the biochemistry of your body, and then we apply all of the mathematical algorithms that we've learned and deliver to you personalized nutritional and supplement recommendations. And then you follow those, and hopefully you get better if the root cause of your problem was in the data we measured, and we know how to tweak it, and you follow recommendations. And so that's the concept of Nutrition 2.0, which we're expanding to more biochemical pathways, more conditions, and so on. So it's a continuously learning process. Don't think that we're done. We're not done. We're just getting started. And so here are our products and add-on products and supplements. And every single product that we have on the market is unique. There is no other entity in the world that can perform this kind of technology, and they cannot offer these kinds of products. They're all based on your biology that we measure in the lab. It's not a survey, it's not a guess, it's not a model. It's actually measuring your data with a quantitative clinical lab method and then telling you exactly what you should be doing. So we're very proud of what we've done here at Viome. I mean, 8 years to develop these sort of things. That was basically science fiction. When I was leaving my government science job, they said, good luck getting to any of this by the time you retire. It'll take 30, 40 years. And I said, well, watch me. So, of course, this is all due to an extraordinary team of leaders and scientists that we've had at Viome. So it's a huge, massive group effort that we've been doing and continue to do. Okay, so what do recommendations, what is some aspect of this mathematics? I want to touch up on the mathematics. We talked about the biochemistry. We're quantifying the biochemical activities of the oral microbiome, gut microbiome, and human genes. And now we go into the math. So the mathematics is used to compute about 70 different scores for every customer who signs up for this FBI kit. And I just listed 3 scores. And one of them is this biological age and the neurotransmitter production, which is focused on GABA for now and serotonin as well. And then cellular senescence, which means dysfunctional cells, how many dysfunctional cells you have in your body. And these are just 3 of the 70, but I want to show you that what is under the hood. So what is under this graph here? What is under this graph?
Mhm.
Under that graph is an extraordinary amount of science, like extraordinary. Like Harvard is jealous of this science. UC San Diego and Stanford are jealous of this science because they have nowhere near that science. And we have published all this, so it's not like this we're hiding this anymore. We hid it for a long time because we wanted to make sure we were established and had a competitive advantage. Now we've opened the hood and we've revealed every detail of how this whole thing works. And so we published a peer-reviewed article this spring that you guys can check out for some oral scores. And now this is a preprint of a gut scores paper that is under review, and it's essentially accepted, so it will become peer-reviewed here soon. But some takeaways. Here's the biochemistry. Here are the molecules and combination of molecules we're measuring in the lab. And here's the math. This is how mathematics is applied to the biochemistry in order to compute the score. So it's all 100% objective. This number here, 0.27966, is mathematically computed from 66,000 human subjects. It wasn't done by modeling something. It wasn't done in mice. It wasn't done in cells. It was not done with some fancy AI. It was done with fancy AI applied to 66,000 human subjects that have very relevant data across the globe. Now, that is an extraordinary thing that we have put hardcore science into nutrition, and I'm very, very proud of that.
Yep.
One more thing, just one level below the scores. Not only do we have scores, but we have scores for different disease types and different disease subtypes, which is essentially science fiction in the rest of the world. For example, this GABA production pathway score is high. GABA is associated with pain. It's high for IBS patients that suffer from constipation and diarrhea. But if you look at the lactic acid production pathways, you can see that the score is actually opposite, that people with IBS-C have a low lactic acid production score, and people with IBS-D have a high one. And the same thing with methanogenesis, they have reverse scores. So our technology can do two things that no other technology can. It can actually identify these scores for sufferers from IBS-C and D. And second, we can apply different nutritional recommendations for people who have IBS-C to those who have IBS-D. And that's really not anywhere in current practice, whether you're a functional medicine doctor or an MD. This level of detail is not possible to obtain from any other test. So how does this work in the kitchen? So I'm a big foodie. I love to cook. My wife loves to cook. We just spend extraordinary amounts of time experimenting in the kitchen, making new meals. We love it. So we're mostly vegans. We're not strict vegans, but we're for the most part vegans. And so I depended a lot on soybean products. So I make soy milk at home and soy yogurt at home. And we consumed a lot of tofu. More recently, my oxalate pathway score decreased, and the computer said, hey, you need to minimize your soybean intake because it's high in oxalates. So I decided to eliminate tofu and take it easy on soy yogurt and soy milk and only use them in the morning for one meal per day. But what I did is I actually developed recipes for making tofu from lentils and chickpeas, which are low in oxalates. And so the computer told me, okay, these are now your enjoy and superfoods. And so now at home, I make tofu from lentils and chickpeas. And this is what the process is like. You basically soak these legumes overnight. You rinse them really well. You just blend them with salt and water, and then you cook them, and then you put them in the fridge, and they solidify into tofu. And you can use that tofu exactly the same way you would use soybean tofu. Every dish that we've ever used tofu for, we now use lentil and chickpea tofu, and it actually tastes better. And so this is a way to translate your biochemistry that our test measured into an oxalate score that we display to you on the app to then transfer into kitchen activities and make a healthy food choice based on your biochemistry. And I don't care at all what the oxalate score is for anyone else. And I don't care at all to read a study that says, are lentils good for you or not? And I don't care about reading any studies to tell me whether chickpeas are good for me or soybeans. I know that tofu on average is really good for people. I know that, but it's not good for me. And so I cannot eat a lot of it. So
I'm going to pop up your lentil tofu recipe right there if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Cool. And then if you want to close down that box, just click the close underneath there. There you go.
Thank you, Lisa. That's nice. Okay, so then let's spend just a minute about these fad diets. I call them fad diets. They're your ketogenic diet, which seems to be the most popular, but there's carnivore diet, there's vegan diet, there's, a million different diets. Some of those diets may work great for you. The point here is be very careful. I wasn't careful. And when I went through my journey and tried different diets, I ended that journey with a ketogenic diet because in 3 months, that ketogenic diet wiped out my memory. And it took many years to recover my memory. And I didn't know that it would have that effect because it was so popular. And it's now even more popular. And so please be careful when you're going on a diet, especially a restrictive diet or a diet that is just so loaded with particular nutrients. Your body may actually negatively react to it. So pay attention, be careful, and disconnect if you think that it's actually causing you problems, which I should have disconnected earlier, but I was pretty desperate, so I tried anything. But the point of this graphic here is that this is a published article, and I list the reference underneath, where we developed our biological aging model. And I just want to highlight here that our customers who are vegetarians or vegans, they slowed down their aging, whereas our customers who are on paleo or ketogenic diet are actually accelerating their aging. They're aging faster. And so these are just preliminary data that could indicate that you might, in the long run, realize that if you're on one of these diets, that's not good for you. And so just pay attention to these signs and start to think, hey, is this really good for me or could I do better? Because I'm worried about these fad diets. I have seen extraordinary reports in the literature and in the blogosphere where they have worked in the short term for people very well. And I applaud that. I love that. That's great. I have my own diet that I support, but I don't promote my diet to everyone because it may not work for everyone. In fact, it will likely not work for everyone. So be careful with that. Okay, let's switch a little bit to mental health. I guess it was a request about mental health topic. So there are now many articles published in the literature where people have done clinical studies and they've shown that nutrition and exercise can in fact reduce mental health issues. And I've just listed a few, but there are many. And so here's, to me, an extraordinary example of why nutrition and microbiome are the most likely biggest root cause of mental health issues. And genetics is definitely not the biggest. This particular peer-reviewed paper describes how a person was essentially disabled even while on pharmaceuticals for her bipolar disease. And she basically said, enough of this. I cannot live my life like this. She basically decided to do fecal microbiota transplant from her husband. And for over a period of 6 months, she did multiple fecal microbiota transplants from her husband. And she completely cured herself of bipolar. She stopped taking all pharmaceuticals. And she has 3 years after this, her doctor basically said, you have no symptoms of bipolar disorder. You're a completely healthy person. And that's an extraordinary proof to me that bipolar disorder is not a disorder of the brain. It is a disorder of the gut microbiome and nutrition. And so please find the time to educate yourself about all these cases, no matter what symptoms you have. Go ask ChatGPT, go ask Google. This sort of intimidation strategy that the medical system has where they say, oh, you're a Dr. Google, you found out something on Google. That may have been true 10, 15 years ago. But today, I believe that Google and ChatGPT can be equivalent or better than the healthcare system in terms of identifying what is the root cause of your problem. And so I encourage you to go and research, educate yourself. It cannot hurt. There is no downside to you educating yourself. If you still want to trust a healthcare provider, that's fine. But I think educating yourself cannot hurt. So I encourage everyone to read.
Absolutely.
I was disconnected. Am I back?
You're back. You are fine.
All right. We're almost done. So I just want to point out that this is also a part of our American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine peer-reviewed publication that came last fall. And I'm just showing how our personalized nutrition can have a very profound positive effect on mental health and mood. And so here I'm showing the results from that paper where we were able to reduce scores of depression and anxiety by quite a lot. So I encourage you to read that paper. And then let's just cover what's coming in the future. What are we thinking about at Viome? What future are we building? This is not a speculation. This is not, oh, I'm going to predict what's going to happen 30 years from now. This is what we're building. So I know this is coming. It's just a sequence of events. Some things are going to come next year. Things are going to come 3 years later. But this is coming because we're building these. And so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So first of all, your new pharmacy is your farmer's market. So really promote this concept. I'm asking every one of you to go and share this with your friends and family and social network. The new pharmacy is your farmer's market. Go get freshly grown, locally grown, ripe fruits and vegetables and integrate those. I'm not saying you should not eat meat. Meat may be good for you or not, it doesn't matter. But no matter what diet you have, incorporate these vegetables, and you will know which vegetables you need to eat after you do the Viome test, of course.
Absolutely.
What we've discussed so far is that our laboratory tests measure your biochemistry via the initial survey that you complete. You tell us your preferences, you tell us your sensitivities, and so on, and AI computes personalized nutrition. But what's coming after nutrition is grocery shopping lists, recipes, and then these are sort of short term. I think we're going to come out with these sometime next year. But what's coming after that is personalized exercise, personalized sleep, and personalized Zen, in that particular order, probably. And so this is all that's coming. So basically, in a few years, all of your diet and lifestyle decisions will be made for you by AI so that you don't have to guess. And that to me is a very exciting world, because when I was guessing, I was sick for many, many years, and it's every single day was painful. And that's hopefully going to be gone for most people. And the last slide is, this is basically in summary that we're developing these modules called Coach Vi and Chef Vi. So Chef Vi will focus on foods, Coach Vi will focus on lifestyle, exercise, sleep, and Zen. We're developing those as part of our app. We're currently working on Chef Vi, and every nutritional and lifestyle decision will be computed for you by AI. AI will take into account your biological data and your preferences, not some average things. And AI will also eventually, I didn't list it on the last slide, but AI eventually will use behavioral science to adjust your mentality. In other words, what I mean here is that it will apply the right words at the right time to get you excited about making these dietary changes. Because at first, even when I found out that I cannot have much tofu anymore, to be honest, I was like, oh, dang, that really sucks, because I had integrated tofu into all of my meals, all of our recipes. We were experimenting with it. We had been playing with it for years, and it was great. And to hear all of a sudden you cannot have as much of it, you really need to minimize it, that at first can be like, oh, dang, that's really upsetting. Luckily, that didn't happen with coffee, but dodge that bullet.
I know.
But at first it's hard. But then, I as a foodie was able to come up with an alternative solution. But what we need is we need AI to enable that and say, hey, don't worry, your tofu is minimized, but don't worry. Let's come up with some new recipes where you can integrate things that you can eat. And so AI will help with that so that you can overcome that, oh my God, this sucks, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's it.
So many new and exciting things in the works for our app, for the community at large, and lots of talk in the community about, hey, can we get this in the app? Can we get, suggestions for, menus and meals? And I'm like, it is in the works. It's coming. And so there you go. That was wonderful. And actually, we are very close to time. I don't know how much time we have for Q&A, but I actually just saw a lot of cheers in here, Momo. Not too many questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, so someone asked a very important question, which is, where can they find publications?
Yes.
And Victoria just posted a URL for our publications.
Yes.
I update that page, and I know that it's up to date. And so links to all of our papers are from that publications list. So please go and explore, and let that be just the start. Go explore science, and don't forget to use ChatGPT for all kinds of cool interpretations and inputs. Utilize AI to your advantage.
Yes, and eat more plants. That's going to be really good for you, for sure.
You
One
just,
thing
yeah.
I do want to pop up here is to thank, first of all, thank you, Momo, for being here and giving us this awesome story and all this fantastic science and news about new things that are on the way for our Viome users. It's so exciting. And the other thing I want to say is thank you to you out there for spending your last hour with us and listening to Momo weave his stories, because I know I enjoy it for sure. But thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to pop up this code right here. If everybody would like to start or continue their health journey with the help of Viome, and you can use the code anniversary at checkout to get $100 off a full body intelligence test. And I don't believe that we have another promo going on right now, so this is really useful. This is good through Sunday. So you will all get a follow-up email tomorrow with a recording to this amazing presentation. So Ray, you can share it out as much as you would like. Spread the word, right, Momo?
Yeah, spread the word, educate yourself. And let me just, we do have a few minutes. Let me just answer a couple of questions here that I saw. So first of all, when it comes to food sensitivities and food allergies, we are currently not performing those tests. Currently, we're getting ready to do some, and you will see in due time what that is. But if you want to know your food sensitivities and allergies, go get that tested from another entity, and then avoid those foods that report there. I'm going to say something controversial here potentially, but my family has been using the food sensitivity test from Everly Well, and that's the only test that I trust. There are so many scammers out there offering food sensitivity tests that it's really a sad situation. So Everly Well 96 food sensitivity test is what I've applied to my family, and it has helped my family over the last 15 years. So I highly recommend that. And then what you can do is, if you have the results of a food sensitivity or food allergy test, you can actually put that in when you're becoming a Viome customer. If you already are a Viome customer and you already have our recommendations, if we say this is your superfood, and the food sensitivity test says you have a high reactivity to it, just stop eating it. The drawback of that is that our computer will not be able to recalculate your diet and make up for that loss. So it's always better if you do a food sensitivity test and then plug that into Viome, then we will recalculate your foods based on that. So that was one question. Another question is when we're going to offer our supplements in Europe. I don't know that. Maybe we can communicate that at some point in time.
Yeah.
Another question was about oral microbiome. Oral microbiome is like an hour topic. And so, Lisa, I encourage you to maybe do a joint webinar, Guru and me, where we talk about the importance of oral microbiome. It's a huge topic. It's now becoming, but again, go read about oral microbiome, and not just oral health, but oral microbiome and systemic health, how influential it is. And again, I cannot overemphasize how important it is that you start using ChatGPT for any kind of a thing, and don't trust it as the ground truth. Don't trust that, okay, whatever ChatGPT says, that must be true. No, it's just a part of your overall knowledge. But ChatGPT has the ability to read thousands of sources and then either, package them all into one or list them all out so that you can really learn a lot very quickly. Learning can take years. I mean, I've been learning science for 40 years and I still keep learning it every single day. So it's a continuous process, but to jumpstart you, I highly recommend ChatGPT.
I do too as well. Very, very useful tool to help you just at least get through the day, learn things, help you do things, execute things. It's very, very helpful. I agree. All right. Well, we are definitely at time now. And so I'm going to go ahead and end off the webinar. Thank you, everybody here. If you have questions that you have addressed to me in the chat, I'm going to download the chat after the webinar, and I will get everybody answers, or I will get them to a person who can answer questions. Thank you so much for answering those questions, Momo. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your time. And everybody have a wonderful rest of your week and a lovely weekend. We'll see you back here next month. All right?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.